Hi, I'm Stewart Spinks and welcome to episode 345 of my podcast, Beekeeping Short and Sweet. How often do you inspect your honeybee colonies? Weekly? Every 10 days because you've clipped the queens? How about every 6 or even every 5 days? Well, this last week I've looked at some of my hives at 5-day intervals. Listen in to hear why and exactly what I found. Beekeeping Short and Sweet, a beekeeping podcast for the inquisitive beekeeper with a short attention span. A beekeeper, in fact, just like me. Before we get into today's beekeeping conversation, and in the absence of anyone else supporting my podcast with an advert or two, here's my little self-promotion again. For all of you who haven't yet signed up to my Patreon page, I, together with Steph, have been creating beekeeping content for many years now. And if you're looking for some straightforward, down-to-earth tips and techniques, help and advice, then do take a look at my Patreon page. We have over 1,600 individual beekeeping posts, videos and podcasts filled with useful and timely help and advice. My approach is pragmatic and calm, sometimes entertaining, but always with help and support for beekeepers at the heart of what I do. I keep my videos short and concise wherever possible. No waffle, no flannel, just honest beekeeping advice from years of keeping bees. Take a look and join me for the new 2025 beekeeping season. It'll cost you less than a jar of honey, and you never know, there may be something there that will help you improve your beekeeping. Head over to Google and search for Patreon and the Norfolk Honey Company. Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast and welcome back to a brief spell of cooler weather that has this beekeeper rummaging through his cold weather clothing once more. Not that it's cold particularly, just cooler than we've been experiencing. The hottest start to May since records began, I think. Oh yes, it's May already, just in case you hadn't noticed. Goodbye April and hello mid-spring as we start our primary month of swarm management, I guess. Not that it hasn't already been quite eventful, and if you've been checking your bees carefully, you may well have been seeing queen cells and had to decide what to do with them. For me, it's been a very interesting change in management strategy this spring, and just to let you know, I've managed to miss 2 swarms out of everything so far. Of course, there are likely to be more that will get away from me, but on the whole, I've been really pleased with the way our management of this tricky period in the beekeeping calendar has progressed. One of the colonies that swarmed went very early, some 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I think at the time, Steph and I were trying to work out how we managed to miss it, only to realise that we had allowed the inspection phase to extend to 8 days, and away they went. Thinking about that colony, they only threw up around 8 swarm cells, and so, following my need to develop more nukes to replace winter losses, I split them into 2 and 3 frame nukes, each with a queen cell. Those, if we're on track, should have emerged and may well have mated and be laying eggs by the next round of inspections in the coming week. Fingers crossed. My strategy this season has been one of increase. I need to split colonies as early as possible in order to grow the overall numbers of colonies back to somewhere around 100 or so, if I can get away with that. This from a starting position of 40 overwintered full-size hives and nukes. So the very early loss of a swarm was something of a concern for me. I wondered if I'd actually lost the ability to spot when a colony was going to start swarming. Never fear though, I've quickly recovered from this aberration and we've had plenty of practice in the last couple of weeks. So much so in fact that at one apiary, the allotments apiary, we've grown the number of boxes of bees from 7 to 18 very quickly indeed. Now when I say boxes of bees, I'm referring to splits with queen cells in them and the parent colonies kept in the same apiary. We've used the 2 nukes from one parent colony method of swarm control to good effect here, and it's given us plenty of positive thoughts for the coming months. However, this is also the location of the second colony that got away from me and swarmed, and it was a sneaky little move that they pulled off, catching me by surprise. So we had a colony that was a combination hive. In fact, it still is a combination hive, set up originally as a commercial hive, but then had a 14 by 12 brood box placed on top without any queen excluder. The bees dutifully moved up into the 14 by 12 box, the queen laid plenty of eggs, and I snuck in a queen excluder to keep her in the top box while allowing the commercial brood box below to fully develop its brood and have that emerge. It was around this time that I spotted queen cells and decided that it was a great time to carry out those splits, creating 2 nukes from the parent hive. Even though the colony was on a double brood of mixed frame sizes, commercial and 14 by 12, the whole process is just the same. I focused on using the 14 by 12 frames only for the splits, ignoring the commercial frames, as these I want to remove completely just as soon as that brood has emerged. A frame of brood and a frame of food, a queen cell on the frame of brood, and everything was looking good. Knocked down all the queen cells in the parent colony, and it couldn't be simpler. The commercial brood box had, by now, very old brood in it, all sealed, so no queen cells in the bottom box, so simply a need to remove the queen cells in the top 14 by 12 box. A week later, I returned to check in on the various split colonies. Both nukes looked great, a single sealed queen cell in each, and workers building comb on the foundation that was given to them to fill up the rest of the nuke box. So far so good. The parent colony was not so successful, however. They had swarmed. As an experienced beekeeper, it's quite obvious when you remove the roof and crown board or cover board that a colony has most likely swarmed. There are an awful lot less bees in the box than you're anticipating, and you can clearly see lots of brood cells, whereas in a growing colony that hasn't swarmed, it's almost impossible to see those cells because of the enormous number of adult workers on those frames. A systematic check of all the frames in the top 14 by 12 box proved that I hadn't missed any queen cells. Not the case in the bottom commercial box. Hidden at the side of a frame, almost moulded into the worker cells, was a sealed queen cell. It appears the bees had taken an egg from the top box down into the lower box and created a queen cell discreetly out of the way of my prying eyes. So anyone out there who doesn't believe workers move eggs around to create queen cells, I guess should reconsider their thinking. If it had been laid into the cell by the queen prior to the insertion of the queen excluder, the bees would have swarmed way earlier than when I inspected them and found those queen cells, and certainly sooner than the splits allowed for. So the moral of the story here is remember to check every frame regardless of what you think is going on in your hive. The good news though is I still have 3 boxes with sealed queen cells or virgin queens in now, rather than the single colony as before, and with a little luck and consistent weather, we should see these colonies grow to the point that by the end of June they may well be in a full-size hive and have a super or 2 on top of them. The timeline for this and other colonies is such that emerging queens in the coming week should be mated and laying eggs by the end of the month. I'm allowing an extended time frame here, worst case scenario if you will, other than the loss of the queen of course. But with a full nuke box of brood by the end of May, moving them into a full-size hive for the last week of May, or first week of June, is likely to provide 6, 7 or maybe even 8 frames of emerging brood by the end of June and into that main foraging period of July. And this is the case for several of the colonies in this and other apiaries, as for the last week or so I've been inspecting every 5 or 6 days with some surprising results. My reasons for carrying out these seemingly very close inspections is that I'm concerned I may miss queen cells and lose early swarms that I can ill afford. Now, although I'm a reasonably experienced beekeeper now, I still miss things and I still make mistakes. Those of you who watch my Patreon videos will know that I'm happy to share my mistakes and share the experiences with you. That said, I am pretty good at seeing queen cells, and with Steph along as well, between us, it's fairly rare that we together miss any queen cells these days. Okay, so I have my caveats in place. Here's what I found. In some, but not all colonies, when we inspected at 5-day intervals. Sealed queen cells. So how is that possible, I hear you cry? Let's consider the biology of a queen cell in terms of the days it takes to go from an egg laid by the queen on day 1 to an emerging virgin queen on day 16. Day 1, the egg is laid into the queen cup. My rudimentary queen cup thus becomes a queen cell. It remains an egg for 3 days and then moves into the larval stage of its life. At day 8, the queen cell is sealed. The larvae goes through several stages of change or metamorphosis before finally emerging on day 16 as a virgin queen. So if I inspect on day 1, the day an egg is laid into the queen cup, and I inspect again in 7 days, the queen cell should be fully drawn and either sealed or being sealed, depending on what time of day I carried out that inspection. So how is it that when I return after 5 days between inspecting, I have found sealed queen cells, when before there were no queen cells in that colony? And although I'm prepared to admit to occasionally missing the odd queen cell, it's happening too many times for it to be simply beekeeper error now. Time and again, early in the season, I find sealed queen cells after my 5 or 6 day inspection routine. What's happening? Well, we can surmise that I'm generally making too many mistakes and simply missing these queen cells, but as I said, I think my experience and frequency of these sealed queen cells means something else is at play here. In order for the queen cell to be sealed, 8 days should have passed from the point that the egg was laid, in order that that queen cell and larvae inside can be provisioned with enough royal jelly to feed it to maturity. Is it possible the bees are selecting worker cells that already have eggs in and simply choosing to make those into queen cells and thus reducing the time frame by 3 days, selecting very young larvae as their prospective queen rather than a custom-made queen cup? Well, yes, it's possible and does happen. We see it with emergency cells. But what I'm seeing is swarm cells at the bottom of frames, sealed and ready to go. Again, I don't leave empty queen cups for the most part. I generally knock them all down, destroying them completely because of this phenomenon. I'm beginning to think, and of course with no scientific evidence that I've produced to back this up, it appears workers may be moving very young larvae, and not just eggs, from worker cells into queen cups and reducing the time frame for sealing those queen cells by 3 days. Now, I haven't had time to do any research and look at what others may have determined or said, but I certainly feel like this is the case, and I'm sure I'm not alone in finding this. The very good news is that my current inspection routine has allowed me to find these growing queen cells just in time to prevent the colony swarming and make my choices about what I want to do. We have grown our colony numbers from 40 to something close to 65 or more, simply by taking colonies that are preparing their reproductive swarming phase and making splits in a range of different ways to retain the original queen in her colony and utilise the swarm cells created by those colonies in making 2 and 3 frame nukes with queen cells in them. If all of those queen cells produce virgin queens and they're all successfully mated, I will be very happy indeed. So I'm currently on a 5 or 6 day inspection routine, and for the most part it's worked really well for me. You might think that I have some very swarmy bees, but actually that's not the case at all. Many of our colonies have yet to produce a single swarm cell and are growing very nicely. These were perhaps a little smaller than the larger ones that have gone on to produce the queen cells early. And remember, I'm deliberately confining these colonies in order to push them towards production of swarm cells so that we can increase our colony numbers quickly and effectively early in the season in order to build our numbers back up. Once we get through this reproductive phase of the season, inspections will relax and we'll actually drift some inspections out to every couple of weeks or more for some colonies, particularly where we're perhaps on the borage or heather. These are the ones that throw up early swarm cells, get dealt with, and then settle back into honey production with no further swarm cell production. And all this in time for the summer nectar flow and the addition of plenty of supers for that honey to be stored into. And finally, also remember, when we take our bees to the heather moors, they go there and are not inspected for 4 weeks. It's probably too late in the season for swarming by that time. The whole inspection routine is something of a developing process for each colony, depending on how it grows and performs. And all of this comes with experience. If you're just starting out, stick with weekly inspections. Look closely at your bees and enjoy the experience of being with your bees, quietly watching them go about their busy schedule. Well, that's it for this week. Before you go, don't forget to check out my website, www.norfolk-honey.co.uk, and for my latest videos and podcasts with more updates, tips and techniques, it's the same Patreon page, www.patreon.com/Norfolk Honey. And remember, I'm Stewart Spinks, and that was Beekeeping Short and Sweet.